Fashion Police Squad is an example of what we now have taken to call a boomer shooter. So, pretty much an old school style first person shooter. Think the original Dooms or Wolfenstein. Lately, the market has been receiving really good games in the genre such as Dusk or Medieval. Now, I don't think the genre is nearly as saturated as it would have to be for Fashion Police Squad to require something exceptional to stand out. But even if that was the case, fret not. Fashion Police Squad does absolutely stand out as a great entry in the genre for reasons that will become clear very soon. In the game, you play as Des, a sergeant in the Fashion Police Squad. Your goal is to... well, I could say it here, but might as well let the game's excellent intro tell you all about it on my behalf.
Even at this moment, our fashionable city is under assault. Baggy pants, dull suits, sightings of socks with sandals. A message needs to be sent, and it needs to be sent in style. Time to serve some good old-fashioned justice.
So yeah, at this your goal is one. Slap some fashion sense into some fools and stop the city from becoming unfashionable. In a way, I think that's one of the main things that makes this game stick out from the others in the genre, its theme. Here, you're not slaying demons or killing a bunch of enemies. No, instead you're improving people's lives by helping them improve their fashion sense, I guess. Well, sure, you're forcefully doing so, and sure, nobody should be forced to abide by societal standards of fashion. But hey, let's just ignore this last bit and focus on the good intentions. I mean, at least the enemies always seem very happy when they get fashion-fied. Oh, such a light-hearted approach to the genre allows for the game to take many other liberties that really work in its favor. One of them, for example, is humor. Of course such a thing is subjective, but for me, the game was constantly making me giggle. Everything is fashion themed and it ended up really putting a smile on my face. Plenty of words are replaced for comedic effect. Ass, for example, gets turned into sass, as in, get your sass over here. And cocktails are called mocktails. Your first weapon is called Should Die for Elite, as in, number 2, DYE-4, as in number 4. Your enemies kinda explode in a dancing animation when you fashionify them. And perhaps my favorite feature, all enemies get an introduction saying what fashion crime they're committing. Much as I dislike to admit it, I've been guilty of quite a few of those infractions in the past. To add to this light-hearted approach, the game also has tons of references to geek culture in general, down to Des's face on the bottom left of the screen looking left and right, similar to Doom. Much like all boomer shooters, each stage of this game also has a few secrets to discover. And these secrets all feature arts of Des wearing usually clothes from other franchises, be it in gaming or other forms of media. The thematic is really well complemented by the pixelated old school graphics, which are simply gorgeous. The soundtrack, while not super varied within each stage, is also really fun to listen to. Have a listen, for example, of a quick fight to the soundtrack that plays for most of the level on display.
Sexy! Yeah.
The audio design itself is also pretty good, with enemies having unique identifying sentences that let you know sometimes before you see them that they are close by and which enemy type it is. Oh, and have I mentioned that after every stage you get a parole ball, where all the fashion criminals you caught get to show off their newly found fashion sense while your stats for the level get shown to you? Yeah, it's great. I could gush more about the style, humor, and thematic of the game, but I think I'll leave it at saying that this game is very unique and has a lot of heart. The devs clearly had a lot of fun creating this world, and it shows. While the devs did nail the thematic, humor, and style of the game, things change a bit when we talk about the gameplay itself, unfortunately. Let's start with the main mechanic, the shooting. It's fine and it works well, but it's the mechanics around the shooting that may be very hit or miss for some people. Let me explain. In Fashion Police Squad, you get quite a few new weapons as you progress through the game. As you get new weapons, you also get new enemy types. However, here's the thing, the game forces you to use all your weapons when fighting enemies. Take the aforementioned Should I For weapon for example. Its entire purpose is to add or remove color from people and objects. So while it works out great to transform grey suits into fashionable, colorful suits, it won't really do anything against people who are wearing baggy pants. For those, you need to use a weapon that shoots needles to properly sew the pants. The game does show you whether you're shooting your enemy with the right weapon or not, both via their health bar and via your partner telling you on the radio if you're messing up. But still, that doesn't change the fact that you'll be constantly swapping between weapons to get the job done. Early game, the weapon switching isn't an issue, but later on, when you've unlocked all weapons, some people might find it overwhelming. If this rate is a problem to you, it will become worse when you consider the level design of some stages. The stages themselves are quite linear, and some of them take place inside buildings or tunnels. For me, this turned into a problem as different enemies have different attacks, and some of the attacks are very tough to dodge when you're in a corridor. Factor in the weapon switching, and I often found myself either poking enemies from behind a corner, or just frantically jumping around swapping weapons and still getting hit due to the lack of space to maneuver. At the end of the day though, I didn't mind these traits, but I do know some people will find it so frustrating. One enemy type, for example, sprays a gas at you. If that happens in a corridor, you might just have to retreat and wait for it to pass before you can actually walk forward. If you find any of this frustrating, going on an easier difficulty level might help, though I can't say I tried that. Out of 4, with 4 being the hardest, I played on the 3rd difficulty level, and I did have a decent challenge in later levels. Some of the combat arenas, which are basically rooms with tons of waves of enemies spawning, also felt a bit of a pain to play through, as they were small and quickly became visually clustered with attacks such as the aforementioned gas attack. Aside from the combat, the game also features a bunch of platforming via secondary uses of a couple of your weapons. The platforming isn't too bad, even if not a strong point for the game. And while this is the biggest variation of the gameplay, the game also has a few other surprises in store that changes how you play the game. Not majorly, just for a first stage or half a stage, but still, they were nice surprises to find. In terms of glitches, the game did have a few minor ones. Doors, for example, were hard to interact with if you're very close to them. But I think the biggest glitch I ran into has got to be in one of the later stages, where an enemy wave spawned in a room while I was outside of it, thus kind of soft-locking my game. See, whenever an arena triggers, the exits close, stopping you from leaving. In my case, however, I was stuck outside of the arena and needed to get through it to complete the level, meaning there was nothing I could do as I had to kill the enemies in the arena to open the doors. Restarting might have fixed the problem, but I was stubborn and decided to use a certain AoE weapon to kill the enemy waves through the door. Crises averted. Well, if what you saw and heard seems interesting to you, I have good news. The game has a demo that you can try on its Steam store page. On the more technical side of things, the game ran fine on my system, which has its specs in the description of the video. It clocks in at around 8 hours of playtime for first playthrough and costs $20 US. So far, the game is only released on PC. And that'll do it for Fashion Police Squad. This was an experience that I thoroughly enjoyed. If you do end up getting the game, please do let me know how you like it. If this review was useful to you and if you'd like to see more, please do leave a like and subscribe as both actions really help out the channel. That said, happy gaming and see you next time.